Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. I know that I look worse than usual. Not that I'm normally a pinup, but gum surgery and it really fucked my face up. Unfortunately, not only am I the pain is actually getting a little bit better during the gum surgery, but I'm so swollen and I still have stitches because it's healing that I'm not allowed to brush the top right of my teeth, and I have very sensitive teeth, so I mean that sucks. I just want to brush my teeth, and I can't, and it sucks. Um, so anyway, something different today. Some Geopoliticope. The only thing that you guys hate more than the Jesus stuff, it seems to be the Geopoliticope. So I don't know, but maybe some people will watch this one. The reason that I want to talk about it now is because it's topical, with the situation flaring up again in Israel and the Middle East. I just think it's interesting to, try to understand, the strategies of the parties involved in the conflict. The So like we know, if you know anything about the sorry, if you know anything about the conflict in the Middle East, I mean, obviously, the whole Arab Islamic world, doesn't recognize Israel. They hate Israel. They want Israel gone. But like they haven't really been, the Arab world hasn't really actively been trying to destroy Israel since I don't know, probably not since the 40s, to tell you the truth. They maybe use the rhetoric, but it really since they've kind of gotten away from that since the 70s at least. The Palestinians are, but the Palestinians, they have no state, they have no army, so it doesn't really matter. So the war against Israel is mainly now done by Iran and Lebanon, and with the other Arab and Islamic states not really too involved. So I mean, and Iran's always saying, and to a lesser extent Lebanon too, are always saying, we are going to destroy Israel. It's not just we want Israel to be gone. We are actively planning to do it. And you kind of like wonder, like how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? And like it might seem kind of fantastical on the surface, but if you actually like listen to what they say, it's it makes more sense, because it seems like, if you were going to just launch a war against Israel to like just wipe it off the map, well, why haven't you done that already? The thing is, Iran and Lebanon have never said that they plan to, wage a war to destroy Israel, or like, some kind of definitive battle. They've never said that. In fact, when they've talked about it at all, they've said that their strategy is to just kind of build a noose around Israel. You got, Lebanon will take care of one front. Iran, and combined with Syria, will take care of the Syrian front. And Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza will take care of the southern front. Now, these things are, in all these cases, they're not talking about building a military, which is going to militarily overrun Israel. That's not something they're planning on doing. What they want to do is build these kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of hybrid units, like a mixture of regular and irregular forces, where the main strength is going to be missile forces, but also they're going to make heavy use of tunneling and stuff too. And so you ring around Israel like that, with not just thousands, not just tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of rockets that target not just population centers, but air bases, power plants, everything. And the goal is not necessarily to just launch these all at once and then have that just, burn up Israel that way. Rather, it's you keep building it, and you have that as the deterrent. And have that as like the kind of like, you put the psychological pressure there. And then meanwhile, Iran eventually gets a nuclear weapon, maybe several nuclear weapons to go along with their missile thing. But even then, it's not necessarily that you launch it at Israel. It's just that you have it. So that increases Iran's power in the region, increases, again, the psychological pressure on Israel. And then what you do is you use that as a deterrent, and then you do cross-border terrorist stuff. Sometimes you just some stuff you just fund, the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria. That's what you call the West Bank. And then sometimes, but sometimes you do like cross-border stuff. You can get people across the borders and do stuff there. You can attack Jewish targets in the diaspora. That tends not to be as effective, but you can do it, especially if there is specifically Israeli targets. It can have some psychological impact. I always thought that was a little counterproductive, but I can see why they would try that. But no, mainly, but the thing is, right, you increasingly, you put pressure on, and then what you have is a situation like there is today, where, Israel is just getting bombarded with rockets. The entire country is in bomb shelters. And what's Israel's response? Nothing. Because there's nothing they can do. So, no, you're not going to destroy Israel immediately after this, but years, decades of this, you start to see that maybe there's something that can work here. And so like right now what's happening, just, to fill you guys in, is I'm not really sure what set it off. It doesn't take much to set shit off over there. But Islamic Jihad is, that's like Hamas rules Gaza, but they also, their junior partner in Gaza is Islamic Jihad. But Hamas is their own thing. They're allied with Iran, but they're not an Iranian proxy. Islamic Jihad essentially, works for Iran. They can't do anything without Iran. And so Islamic Jihad, something happened between Israel. I'm not sure exactly what. It doesn't really matter. That happened between Israel and Islamic Jihad, and Islamic Jihad started launching rockets. So you've got a situation where Israel doesn't really know what to do, because, if they really retaliate against Islamic Jihad, then Hamas is going to jump in. And Hamas has, I would say, I don't know exactly, but I would say at least 10 times as many rockets as Islamic Jihad has. And it's like, and Islamic Jihad is already enough to put the entire, country in bomb shelters for who knows how long. So if you really retaliate against Islamic Jihad, there's only a matter of time before it escalates to the point where Hamas jumps in. Furthermore, there's always the point that while you're bombing them, that you have to mobilize troops to guard the border. That some of those rockets start targeting the troops. And when that happens, you have to send the troops in, or else they're just going to be sitting ducks. And there's nothing that scares Israel more than having to go into Gaza. Because it's, guaranteed to be a humanitarian catastrophe, which is horrible PR for Israel, which Israel's obsessed with. And, particularly the IDF. Israel, there's different powers in Israel that rule. You have the government, which is more right-wing, led by Netanyahu, and then you have the IDF, which is very left-wing. And, but it's there's definitely a big deep state in Israel, and the army is a huge part of that. But another thing is that, whatever happens, Israel can't win. The thing is, you bomb Islamic Jihad, right? But you bomb Islamic Jihad more. So what's the end result of that? Islamic Jihad is going to keep shooting the rockets. They're not going to run out of rockets anytime soon. And you're basically not going to do anything. And then if you want to, what you're going to have to do eventually is, as they keep bombing you and nothing happens, is you're going to have to escalate. That's going to bring Hamas in. And then with Hamas, you're going to have to escalate more. So you're going to have to get the troops you're going to have to put the troops on the border. Then the troops are going to get targeted with rockets, and some of them are going to die. Some of them might get kidnapped, which the Israelis are really scared of. Which means that you have to send the troops physically into Gaza, where a lot of them are going to die. And this is an important thing to understand about Israel. Israel is the only country in the world where they fear soldier deaths more than they fear civilian deaths. Israelis would rather 1,000 civilians die than one soldier. It's again, it's an Israeli culture thing. You wouldn't get it. They I mean 1,000 of their own civilians. I mean, then one of their soldiers die. But then the thing is, the thing is, right? If you want to destroy Hamas or Islamic Jihad, the thing is, the population of Gaza is Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Okay, so it's not a matter that you're just going to excise these organizations. The only way you could ever destroy Hamas and Islamic Jihad is to actually conquer Gaza. And once you conquer it, there's no way out. You're stuck there forever. Because once you leave, Hamas and Islamic Jihad are going to come back. And that is the thing that Israel fears the most. I know it can kind of sound crazy, but again, it would make sense if you understood Israeli culture, and it would really make sense if you understood the IDF. Israel would rather have their population live in bomb shelters than reconquer Gaza. There's pretty much nothing that scares them more than having to rule over Gaza. And so they can't really do that. And then another thing that they have to worry about is how far can they go without Lebanon stepping in? Because Israel did fight a war against Lebanon in 2006, and they lost pretty badly. And what would happen if they fought again is they'd lose even worse this time, because Hezbollah is a lot stronger than they were back then. Now, Israel could inflict a lot of casualties. They could, they would damage Lebanon a lot worse than they themselves would be damaged. But the thing is, Lebanon doesn't really care, how badly it gets damaged. So the thing is, the best they can do in Gaza is a draw. We've seen this in 2008, 2011, 2012, 2014. We know that the best they can do is a draw because they can't reconquer Gaza. And then Lebanon, if you wanted to destroy Hezbollah, you would have to, first of all, you're not going to destroy Hezbollah, period. The thing is that you could theoretically destroy Hamas and Islamic Jihad by conquering Gaza, which would never happen, but you could theoretically do it. But Hezbollah, it wouldn't matter. If you conquered Lebanon, all of southern Lebanon, Hezbollah is not gone. Not only will they still be there fighting guerrilla warfare, but they're just going to be in northern Lebanon. What are you going to do? Conquer the whole country? And then after that, what are you going to do? Go into Syria? It's not going to happen. So there's but the thing is and then not to mention they would lose a ton, just taking the place anyway. Who knows if they could even pull it off? The thing is, the Israeli military's reputation really just comes from, the 50s, the 60s, to a somewhat extent the 70s. But if you if you think about it, Israel really hasn't won a war in 55 years. They won in 48 and 49. They won in 56. They won in 67, but then they lost in the War of Attrition. They lost the Yom Kippur War. They lost in 82. They lost the First Intifada. They lost the Second Intifada. They had to withdraw from Lebanon in 2000. And they lost to Lebanon in 2006. Now, they've had a couple of draws against Hamas in Gaza, but that's not really anything to brag about. Hamas is I think Hamas has got 20,000 guys or something, and you've seen it in every war, in every single war with Hamas has come out stronger, except for maybe in 2008. That might have been the exception. But even then, they certainly didn't come out weaker. So, you know, so yeah, I mean, so like Israel's really in there's like, it's truly a no-win situation. Israel can't win. So, and they know they can't win. So what their idea is, they call it mowing the lawn. Some people call it controlled carnage. This is back to like what Israel would do in like the 50s. To deal with Arab terrorism back in the 50s, what they would do is they would basically just respond with terrorism of their own. And in the 50s, it worked pretty well. They had to kind of get away from it because it was causing problems with the United States. And they don't really do it to that extent anymore. They might kind of engage a little bit of it, but it's not really, you can't really do stuff you could get away with in the 50s. You can't necessarily do today for a lot of reasons. And so that's the thing. There's really like inequality of the forces. Like Hamas, knows that like, they can basically tell Israel like, Islamic Jihad's your problem. We're not going to stop it for you. And Islamic Jihad has got no real incentive to do. I mean, if they're not going to get concessions from Israel, why should they stop firing? And especially not before they've drawn blood. The thing is, Hamas, they don't even necessarily need an actual victory. They just need to be able to something that they can go to the Arab Islamic world and to the Palestinian public and say, look, we beat them. We got to win here. Even if it's not true. And like kind of like a psychological victory. And these things, like I said, they have a cumulative effect. So, but anyway, so like, I know it maybe sounds like I'm saying the Iranian strategy is a good one. It's not that I think it's a good one. If you're asking me, is the Iranian strategy going to be, Iran says that they are going to destroy Israel in the next 23 years. They said in the next 23 years, they'll destroy Israel. And I don't think that's meant to be taken literally. I think it's more of like a guideline. I'm sure some of them believe it, but I don't think they literally mean, it's going to happen in 23 years. Do I think the current strategy can do it in that time frame? No, I don't. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to work. I think that they're misunderstanding. I think that they really don't understand Israeli culture and the divides in there. The thing is that terrorism just doesn't bother Israelis that much. The thing is, it's one of those things that you just kind of get used to. So like, you're not going to destroy Israel with terrorism. You're going to need a genuine military victory. So just saying like, we're going to point a bunch of rockets at you isn't going to do any good. So, I mean, it's not that it's not going to do any good. I mean, I see where they're going with this. I just don't think it's going to work. However, that brings us to just the wider political situation. Whereas if you think about just because it won't work by itself doesn't mean you couldn't have other things or internal issues within Israel itself. And Israel is very divided, like internally, extremely divided. It's essentially multiple countries in one. Like a fifth of the population of Israel is Palestinians. I'm talking about actual citizens of Israel. A fifth of the population is Palestinians. And then, so you have a fifth of the population who actively wants your country to disappear. I mean, that's a pretty big population. That's a pretty big population in there. And then a large part of the population is, I think about 500,000, maybe only 250,000, but which is, a lot. A big you're talking about a country that's got like less than 9 million people, fewer than 9 million people. I'm sorry. Are just like ethnic Russians, Christians from Russia or the Caucasus, who don't really have any attachment to Israel, either. I mean, they're not hostile to it like the Arabs are. But then you have within Israel itself, you can say like, oh well, they're Jews, but it's like, yeah, but it's not like they're all Jews like the same way that like everybody in Poland is Polish or everybody in German is German, because like the Jewish groups are so divided. You know, you've got the national religious, the ultra Orthodox, the traditional Jews. That's like the working class Sephardic Jews, and then the secular Jews. And I'll admit, there is a lot of overlap between the traditional and the secular, although there are divisions there too. But those two there are those two there's a lot of overlap with. I'll give you that. And there's a degree of overlap between the national religious and the ultra Orthodox. But those two blocks, are often extremely hostile to each other, and often they don't really view each other as the same nation at all. And that's not even getting into the divisions within the groups. So, like, I mean, you got like, because it comes up all the time. They're saying like, as the ultra Orthodox population gets bigger, you keep seeing the secular say like to the ultra Orthodox, you guys need to contribute. You need to serve in the army and you need to pay taxes, or the state's going to collapse. And the ultra Orthodox, say we don't care if the state collapses. We were here before you. We'll be here when you're gone. So, I mean, honestly, when you look at it, it's actually amazing that Israel lasted as long as it has. But anyway, despite all of that, even with those divisions, like I couldn't tell you for sure that means like Israel's going to be able to, hold these divisions forever or last against, the Iranian ring of death forever. But I don't see it happening in 25 years, unless, and this is where I think, if there's somebody else from outside the region. I don't think Iran can do it by itself. However, according to the Bible, Ezekiel, and I'm going to tell you something here. This is something that more Christians tend to believe. Jews tend not to take prophecies very seriously, including biblical prophecies. I don't know why that is, but Jews just don't really take prophecies very seriously. Maybe like the most general ones, but the Ezekiel prophecy is that Israel we're going to call it the end of days. Although Judaism doesn't really have the end of days like there is in Christianity, but we've like the end of, I don't know, our current era. Just think about that. There's going to be a coalition of where Russia is the leader. Turkey and Iran are the two junior partners, and Sudan and Libya are the two satellites, the two super junior partners, and that they're going to attack as a coalition led by Russia that will conquer Israel, and that I see as much more likely. I don't think Iran can do it by themselves. I don't think they could even do it with Turkey. So no, but the thing is, like the issue obviously becomes, it's like, well, Russia's tied down right with Ukraine. Like how would they do that? Also, would the current Russian state even want to do that? I mean, like Putin's not really much. I mean, he's got his issues, but he's not much of an anti-Semite. No, I agree with that, and that's like why it kind of makes me think. And I could certainly be wrong. I'm just trying to say, like, if this prophecy is correct, and again, tons of religious Jews don't believe this. Okay, in fact, I would say almost most don't. Most religious Jews don't take prophecies seriously. It's not. If they're dismissive of it, it's not something they think about. But I do take prophecy. I'm not like married to it, but I at least think they're worth looking at. If what's happening in Russia, Russia does seem to be really foundering, or is it foundering or floundering against Ukraine? It's not clear if today Ukraine started its counteroffensive or not. But Russia doesn't. I mean, Russia's fighting poorly. They're really doing a bad job, and it's possible that their front could collapse. I'm not saying it will, but I don't know. But the longer this goes on, the more, the nationalist right in Russia, is gaining strength, because, you have the Wagner militia becoming increasingly independent. And Wagner, Wagner, they've got the skull and crossbones just like the SS did. Wagner is obviously a reference to, Wagner was Hitler's favorite composer. And they're associated with, the far right in Russia. If this group becomes increasingly independent and increasingly powerful, the longer this war goes on, you could see a situation where after the war ends or even during the war, you have a nationalist takeover in Russia that's really able to consolidate Russia, get its resources together, and really start projecting its power in a way that the current Russian state cannot. The current Russian leadership is not nationalist. But if you did have a nationalist leadership, nationalists always look to expand, especially if they're, ideologically anti-Semitic nationalists, and as Wagner certainly are. So in that case, I think once you have that, you would see, I think you will see aggressive moves. Russia making very aggressive moves in the Middle East, with the goal eventually of waging a direct war against Israel and conquering the country. Now, again, to be totally consistent with the prophecy, you would have to have Russia as the head of the coalition with Turkey and Iran allied underneath them, and Sudan and Libya. So it's this. If the prophecy is going to come true, it can't be something that's going to happen like next week. It's going to be something that we're a ways away from, if it is, even if it even is true. But I do see the signs of it, that we are potentially getting there. So yeah, that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next.